Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome here to the launch pad and our live launch coverage of RocketLab's 39th Electron mission, Baby Come Back. If it's your first time here, welcome. My name's Zach. I'm the founder and host here at the launch pad, and here at TLP, it's our mission to inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow because we believe that space is better together, and we're glad to have you all joining us here tonight, or maybe it's morning or afternoon, depending where you're joining us from. Let us know in the chat below. I see lots of people tuning in. We got Doug from Boulder, Colorado. We have Peter in Toronto. We've got Brazil, Tucson, Arizona with Mr. Moose. Great to see so many people. Denise is in California. Princess is in Canada. Alexar, I hope I'm saying that right, it's in the UK. We got John in Florida, and we got Justin in New York. It's great having so many of you joining us here. If you haven't yet, take a moment, engage that like button, share out the stream, invite people to join us for today. A historic flight for RocketLab as they go for their 39th flight. Not too fancy of a number, but today they are going to attempt to recover an Electron first stage booster, and hopefully this one will be one of the first ones that actually gets an attempt to refly. They've done some upgrades to the Electron rocket to make it have a better journey through reentry, or through the wall as they like to call it, and they're going to be attempting that recovery today. They've scrapped the helicopter, they're going for a splashdown and recovery with their ship, and that's what we're expecting to see here today. We are now at T-minus 22 minutes 47 seconds and counting till launch. As you can see to the side of me, RocketLab is getting ready to go live, and once they do, we will listen in to Mission Control for an update on how today's count is progressing. We've been keeping an eye on everything through their social media, but everything so far has been operating nominally. The range is looking good, and so is the weather that is out on site. Looking at the current weather, 17 degrees Celsius, really light winds, so we'll hopefully have a absolutely beautiful launch here today. We'll be looking at a live view of Launch Complex 1B at RocketLab's Mahia Peninsula facility here momentarily once they get spooled up. But before we do, if you have questions, you can send those in the chat by tagging us at the launch pad, and we'll work on answering those live to the best of our ability throughout today's stream. But as always, you can head on over to tlpnetwork.com, click on that first launch that you see there. That is going to be this current launch, the up and coming launch. But on our website, you can see all of our detailed mission briefings, as well as our launch control calendar, where you can see all upcoming global Earth departures. So definitely take a moment and check that out. That's where we go through everything to know about upcoming launches, and we'll go through a bit of today's. Today's liftoff time is currently targeting 9:27 p.m. Eastern Time, or 1:27 a.m. UTC. We do have a 2-hour launch window, and they are now targeting pretty much the end of that window. So if we have any sort of delays today, we will be having to delay to another launch attempt. The Baby Comeback mission includes NASA's Starling project, which consists of 4 CubeSats designed to test technologies for future swarm missions. Telesat is contributing the low Earth orbit 3 demonstration satellites, ensuring continuity for customers and ecosystem vendor testing as well. And there are 2 3U satellites carrying the GNSS-RO payloads from Spin Global. This will be for helping replenish their constellation of over 100 multi-purpose satellites. We dive a little bit more into the rocket and RocketLab on our mission briefing as well, so definitely take a moment, go check out the mission briefing. We'll get all the YouTuber things out of the way. It is launch day, so if you head on over to our shop, you can get 10% off of everything on our store using promo code LAUNCHDAY. We just dropped an entire collection for Chandrayaan 3 and the ISRO and the GSLV Mark III. First bit of our new collection for Indian ISRO coverage, so definitely take a moment and check that out. Also, if you haven't seen, we do have a live 24/7 tracker tracking the current location of Chandrayaan 3 over its 42-day mission heading to the moon for hopefully the first successful lunar landing for India. Well, we're glad to have so many of you joining us here live today, T-minus 20 minutes and counting until launch of RocketLab's 39th Electron mission, launching from New Zealand. Great to have so many of you joining in with us. If you guys have questions, you can send those in the chat by tagging us at the launch pad. We'll answer those. We'll give some more welcomes here. We got Jeremy, who's in New Zealand. Great to have you. Telmo's in Portugal. Justin's in New York. Alain is from Texas. Great to have you. Shirley's in Sydney, Australia. Ian's in Wisconsin. The Moon Man's in Michigan. Ross is also from New Zealand. Good afternoon. We've got Grand Canyon's in Tucson. Erica's in Brazil. Ronnie is in Dominican Republic. We got Henrik in Norway. Stuart's in Ottawa. Absolutely incredible. A really global coverage joining in here. Global community joining in for today's Electron launch. Mr. Moses, thank you so much for that super chat. Appreciate it. Absolutely. I hope I'm going to say it right. Alexia? Thank you so much for watching with your dad. It's great having you here. Awesome that you were just 5 and trying to get her into space there. It's super important. Awesome having so many parents watching with their kids. Our mission here at the Launchpad is inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow, and that's exactly what you are doing. So, Alexia, I hope I say that right. Keep looking up, dream of the stars, dream of what you want to do, and maybe space will be involved in that. We're going for a really exciting new era. As you can see, Rocket Lab's going live, so let's listen in to Rocket Lab Mission Control for an update on the count.
Hello and welcome to the live webcast of our 39th Electron mission called Baby Come Back. It is now 1:07 on the 18th of July, New Zealand Standard Time, and we are at T-minus 18 minutes to today's Electron launch. I'm Imogen Ray.
And I'm James Rattray, and we're here at Rocket Lab's Mission Control Centre to guide you through today's journey to space, a rideshare mission for 3 customers from Pad B at Launch Complex 1.
You might have noticed the red paint scheme on Electron today. That's right, on top of the primary mission to deploy customers' satellites to orbit, we will attempt to recover Electron's booster from the ocean after it returns to Earth under a parachute. Launch preparations are going well and Electron is vertical and ready on Pad B. We are scheduled to launch today at 13:27 local time or 1:27 UTC. For those watching in the US, that is 21:27 Eastern or 18:27 Pacific. We have multiple backup opportunities throughout the remainder of this 2-week window in case we're unable to launch today. Those launch timings remain the same for every day of the window should we need to reschedule for any reason. The good news, though, is that all operations are currently running smoothly and we're continuing the pre-launch procedures as we approach T0. We've got a ton of information to share about today's mission, so let's get started.
Absolutely. Baby Come Back will launch a total of 7 satellites to a sun-synchronous orbit for 3 customers. Riding on today's mission is a spacecraft for Spaceflight Laboratories, 4 CubeSats for NASA, and 2 satellites for Spire Global. Let's get into a bit more detail about these payloads in order of deployment. First off the payload plate will be the 4 CubeSats from NASA as part of the agency's Starlink mission, designed to test technologies to enable future swarm missions. Spacecraft swarms refer to multiple spacecraft autonomously coordinating their activities on orbit as one. Here's more from NASA.
Groups spacecraft, also known as swarms, will open the door to exciting new opportunities in science and space exploration.
And if you're just joining us, welcome here to the Launchpad. They're playing a wonderful video that I'm sure explains these spacecrafts, but with some beautiful copywritten music overlaying them. So we're going to run through a little bit more about what we know about today's mission, and we'll be answering your guys' comments and questions as we now count down T-minus 16 minutes, 31 seconds, and counting until launch from New Zealand, the 39th Electron mission, and hopefully the first going for recovery that will actually get to fly again. If you guys have questions, you can keep sending those in the chat by tagging us at the Launchpad, and we'll work on answering those live to the best of our ability. We are going for the 107th launch of this year. This is Rocket Lab's 7th launch of 2023, the 4th launch from this pad, and the 7th launch, obviously, for Electron, as that's the only rocket that Rocket Lab flies at this time. Looking towards the timeline for today's events to run you through what you can expect, the vehicle will become supersonic at T+1 minute into flight. Immediately following that, we'll experience maximum dynamic pressure. At T+2 minutes 24 seconds into flight, we'll have MECO, or main engine cutoff, immediately followed by stage 1 separation and second stage ignition with that Rutherford vacuum engine. At T+3 minutes 3 seconds into flight, we'll have fairing separation, and stage 1 will reach its apogee a minute later at T+4 minutes 7 seconds, beginning its journey back to Earth. The drogue chutes of the first stage will deploy 7 minutes 23 seconds into flight, and the booster about 15 seconds later will become subsonic. The main parachutes will deploy from the first stage of Electron T plus 8 minutes 13 seconds into flight. The second stage that whole time has been burning, continuing on to burn until 8 minutes 59 seconds into flight, where we will have SECO, or second engine cutoff. The second stage will separate immediately following, separating the Kickstage, continuing it on its journey with all of today's payloads. That first stage booster, it's expected to splash down anywhere from T plus 15 minutes 15 seconds to T plus 17 minutes 43 seconds. So we got about a 2.5 minute window where we're expecting to see that first stage splash down. That all happens to do with how the parachute performs, the weather, the wind conditions, the loft it gets from the chute, and everything there. So that's when we're hoping to see that. RocketLab will be staying live with cameras from the first stage, it sounds like, as long as they have that downlink from the booster. So fingers crossed we get to see that booster all the way home, and then they'll be confirming splashdown and recovery via their social medias. As it is a customer mission, we do expect them to stay live for payload deployment, but it's unlikely that we'll actually have visuals. Normally we just see animations from RocketLab for payload deployments. Those are going to happen in 2 sets, with NASA's Starlink satellites deploying in a series. That's going to begin at T plus 49 minutes 14 seconds into flight. We have 2 Spire satellites. They'll deploy 51 minutes 14 seconds into flight, and then we have to do a couple more burns of that kick stage, so it has to go through 2 burns, and the final deployments will occur T plus 1 hour 46 minutes into flight. So a rather dynamic flight for an Electron mission, not the regular send it up, do 1 burn, and throw out a couple satellites. Rather dynamic, lots of CubeSats on board, multiple burns of the kick stage, and they're going for recovery. So it'll be a very exciting mission, and we'll be working and following along with that. Depending on the type of what we have to see of the second stage, once it's in the coast phase, we'll probably stay live, answer some of your questions, and then confirm payload deployments via our social media. But as always, if you guys have questions, you can send those in the chat by tagging us at the Launchpad. Now, T-minus 13 minutes 5 seconds and counting. You're looking at a live view of the Electron rocket and the fairing on board, where we are continuing through today's countdown for launch. We are basically at the end of today's launch window, so if we were to hear anything change for today, we would be leading into a delay for another flight, but it looks to be a beautiful day down on the Mahia Peninsula in New Zealand for Rocket Lab's 39th Electron mission and their 7th of 2023. Catching up on some questions in the chat. Make sure you're tagging us at the Launchpad so that we can make sure we see those questions coming in. Appreciate it. Will saying good luck and Godspeed, Electron. Good evening from Central Kentucky. Great having you there. As they continue, it looks like maybe we'll be through those commercials. So we'll listen back into Mission Control, and we'll continue to answer your questions. Let's listen in as we listen in for an update from the Mission Control team.
Radar will now check in from their stations to confirm all systems are go for launch.
So we're listening in for that go, no go to enter
all
terminal
operators,
count.
This is the LD on mission, proceeding with the go, no go sequence. Stage.
Stages go.
Avionics.
Avionics is go.
GNC.
GNC is go.
Beacon.
Beacon is go.
T1.
T1 is go.
GC.
GC is go.
PLS.
PLS is go.
RSO.
RSO is go.
MET.
MET is go.
RF.
RF is go.
MM.
MM is go.
Recovery.
Recovery is go.
LD sub.
LD sub is go.
That completes the go, no go sequence. We are T-minus 11 minutes, 21 seconds and counting. We are go for terminal count at T-minus 10 minutes. From this time, the 3-word hold procedure is in effect.
And that is what we wanted to hear. The go, no go is complete, and teams have pulled go to enter that terminal account. Now T-minus 11 minutes and counting until launch. And important 2 ones that you heard there. 1, MET. That's their weather team. Weather is go for launch, as well as recovery has given a go, as this is now going to be something we see more frequently with RocketLab. Just like SpaceX, it might be go at the pad, but if recovery is no go, they'll have to make the decision on whether they still go for an launch attempt. So another rocket company starting to enter this reusable kind of era of their vehicles. T-minus 10 minutes, 30 seconds and counting. We'll continue listening in to the nets as we go through terminal count at this time. But you can see that both the first and second stages have been fully fueled and they are ready. They are going through final top-offs ahead of today's flight.
LDGC on mission.
Go ahead, GC.
Stage 1 igniter pressures verified, hydraulic pressures verified.
Roger, thank you, sir.
As always, today's primary mission is deploying our customers' satellites to orbit. But as we hinted at before, we're also very excited to have a secondary objective today, to recover Electron's first stage as part of our reusability program. After completing multiple marine recoveries and perfecting the process, we are going all in on this method, which involves gently splashing Electron down in the ocean under a parachute and then extracting it onto our recovery vessel for transport to our factory for refurbishment and eventual reflight.
The Electron vehicle today features new innovations developed as a result of the lessons learned on previous recovery missions. This one features improved sealing solutions within the interstage and power pack, and some internal components on the first stage Rutherford have been adapted for improved saltwater resilience. If you keep a close eye on stage separation about 2.5 minutes into flight, you should be able to catch a glimpse of the sealing as the first and second stages separate, revealing the inside of the interstage.
Let's hear a little bit more about the progress our recovery team has made on making Electron the world's first reusable small launch vehicle.
And we'll keep a close eye on, they run through another video here on the road to reusability. For those that have followed along through Rocket Lab's history, they have recovered Electrons previously under parachute splashing down into the ocean, but also they were attempting to recover them via helicopters. And that goes to a question from Shattered in the chat. Have Rocket Lab given up on the catch and retrieve idea? And that's a really great question. It fits perfectly into even Rocket Lab's timeline for today's stream. Basically, Peter Beck gave an update a number of months ago on why they're going to look at forgoing the capture in the air technique, which for those that didn't know, they were going to recover a Electron rocket the way they are today. It was going to descend through drogue chute and main chute, but the main chute was actually going to have a tail on it, and that tail was so that a helicopter could then make eye contact, find it, make sure it's safe, and then approach, and the helicopter would have a big long tether with a hook, and they would actually hook the Electron rocket's parachute and then try to carry it home. Maybe we'll see some footage here in a moment, but they have successfully had Electrons return to Earth and splash down. So what they're doing today isn't a first, but it's the first time the Electron has had all these modifications done to it that hopefully it will be able to be refurbished and actually launch again. But that helicopter technique, one of the biggest issues with it was cost. You would have to have the helicopter that you have to maintain. They're very expensive. You have to have that flight crew sent out. And then not only that, you always still had to have the ship down below, because if you missed the helicopter or the helicopter caught it and had to release it, like we did see that first time that they attempted recovery, the second time the helicopter couldn't get it. They didn't even attempt it. The first time they caught it, the helicopter wasn't stable enough, and they had to release it for helicopter safety. Parachute reopened, it splashed down, the ship recovered it and brought it back. So there's a much larger cost about doing the helicopter. The theory of it makes more sense. Catch it out of the air, take it home. But if you can't catch it out of the air, then you still need your ship down below to be able to return it back to the site. So to reduce cost, they focused on one thing. Maybe we'll see that happen in the future, but we'll wait and see. There's actually, it looks like a live view from the recovery ship awaiting to retrieve today's Electron rocket. I want to give a thanks in the chat there. Ricky Powell, thanks so much for gifting 5 memberships. Really appreciate that support. If you're just joining us, welcome. We are at T-minus 6 minutes, 10 seconds and counting till Rocket Lab launches its 39th Electron rocket, and they're going for their first kind of official recovery that hopefully will be a booster that gets to fly again. We're going to listen back into Mission Control for an update, as we are now under 6 minutes and counting till launch.
To survive the brutal re-entry environment, what we call the wall, during its descent back to Earth.
At around 7 minutes after liftoff, a drogue parachute will be deployed to increase drag and to stabilise the first stage as it descends. In the final kilometres of descent, a large main parachute will be deployed to further slow the stage and enable a controlled splashdown. Once the stage is aboard the recovery vessel, our team will then begin the flushing and preservation steps to remove salt water, prevent corrosion, and secure the stage for the return voyage to our production complex.
Today's mission is another major step forward in our plan to evolve Electron into a reusable rocket, and we're taking all of this experience into the development of our medium-lift rocket Neutron as well.
All right, it's now T-minus 5 minutes before liftoff, but before we get to that, let's take a quick look back at our most recent launch, one you might not have watched yet. Last month, we launched our first suborbital mission using Haste, our hypersonic accelerator suborbital testbed Electron vehicle. This mission, called Scout's Arrow, lifted off from Launch Complex 2 and was a large-scale test in partnership with Leidos for the Mark TB program, which is designed to increase the speed of testing for commercially available hypersonic systems. Let's check out that launch.
So on your screen now is a replay of the launch of Haste. This is a modified Electron rocket for a suborbital mission that launched on June 18th of 2023. This is the first official footage we've really seen from RocketLab of that mission. Unfortunately, there was no live coverage of it, and they love their music, but great to see some footage from that first mission, and hopefully something we will get to see more of in the near future, but also something that we will be able to live stream and bring you live coverage of in the future as well. This was a test mission for this modified version of Electron. So looks like it was a successful mission there. Timeline popped out a little early. We're almost there. T-minus 3 minutes, 35 seconds and counting until Electron will launch from Launch Complex 1B at the Mahia Peninsula in New Zealand. If you haven't yet, take a moment, engage that like button, share out the stream. As always, here at the Launchpad, we're getting into the final bit of the count, so we're going to see that go, no go in the chat. If you want to use the custom TLP emojis, consider hitting that join button. It helps us continue our mission of informing and inspiring explorers of tomorrow, because space is better together. But as a reward of being a TLP member, just 99 cents a month, you also get some of those custom TLP emojis to use during launch streams. At T-minus 3 minutes and counting, let's listen back in to mission control.
Inside the fairing are good to go. The weather is trending green and the path to orbit is looking clear from Launch Complex 1 at T0. Soon we'll hear the call that LOX top-off is complete on Electron, telling us that the rocket is fully fueled for launch. When the rocket has completed fueling, Electron's internal computers, take over the countdown to run the vehicle autonomously at T-minus 2 minutes. Of course, you know the drill. From T-minus 10 seconds, we'll hear the launch director, Joseph Carpico, count down the final seconds before Electron's 9 Rutherford engines ignite 3 seconds before liftoff.
We're going to hand over now to Mission Control to follow along for those final moments before liftoff.
T-minus 2 minutes and counting. Electron is now in launch auto sequence. Beautiful day at Launch Complex 1. Electron now on internal power. T-minus 90 seconds.
Load is complete. System is in recirculation.
AFTS is green, enabled for flight.
Anti-geysering is disabled.
Stage 1 and Stage 2, press for flight.
High flow engine purge enabled.
T minus 30 seconds.
T minus 20 seconds and counting. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Liftoff.
Liftoff.
The vehicle has cleared the pad, safing launch pad.
Stage 1 propulsion nominal.
And that's liftoff. Our 39th Electron launch vehicle is in the sky for this mission and progressing well on its way to sun-synchronous orbit.
The first major milestone in flight is max Q, or maximum aerodynamic pressure. Just ahead of 1 minute 20 seconds, Electron will push through the highest amount of aerodynamic stress it experiences.
Approaching max Q. Cleared max Q.
And with word from Mission Control, we can confirm that Electron has successfully passed through max Q and is continuing on its southeastern trajectory off the coast of New Zealand. The first stage's Rutherford engines are firing nominally as we come up to the next series of events in the vehicle's launch profile, starting with main engine cutoff, or MECO.
Electron will go through a clean separation of the first and second stages before the single Rutherford engine on the second stage
Guidance
fires
nominal.
up and
Altitude
takes
is
the vehicle
28
satellites
kilometers,
the rest
speed
of the
is
way into orbit.
1,022
We should
meters
see
per
those
second.
actions on screen and hear the call-outs from Mission Control operators shortly.
Operation then marks the first step in today's
Stage 1
recovery
propulsion
mission as
holding
well,
nominal.
as that
Stand by
first
for
stage
MECO in
reaches
roughly 30
apogee before
seconds.
making its journey back down to Earth.
"15 seconds to staging.
Entered burnout detect mode.
MECO confirmed.
Stage separation successful.
Guidance nominal. Altitude is 77 kilometers. Speed is 2,082 meters per second.
Stage 2 ignition confirmed.
And there we go. We have confirmed a successful transition from the first to second stages of Electron's flight, with MECO, stage separation and second stage engine start all nominal. You can now see the orange glow of the space-optimised Rutherford engine as it carries
Stage 2
on into
propulsion
space.
holding nominal.
The payload fairing, the protective shell at the top of Electron, protects the satellites, but since we've cleared the lower atmosphere, they don't need this protection anymore. Let's keep an eye out for when the payload fairing, and there it goes, to get rid of all that dead weight, and we've seen it just fall away.
We've got some time before the next milestone, so let's take a look at the booster returning to Earth on the left of your screen. Everything's looking good there. A couple of minutes ago, the engines shut down on that first stage, and after the booster reached apogee, the reaction control system kicked in to reorient itself to place it on an ideal angle of attack for re-entry.
During re-entry, Electron will reach around 8 times the speed of sound on its descent, and the air around Electron will heat up to 2,400 degrees Celsius, generating an extremely hot plasma that creates a red-orange glow around the business end of the stage.
That Stage 1 booster is doing well on its way back to Earth, and Stage 2 is making light work of its journey to orbit. You can see on the graphs there, Stage 1 looks like just reached apogee and is starting its descent back to Earth, and Stage 2 is well on its way. Electron's second stage moving at a speed of 11,000 kilometers an hour and just passing through 192 kilometers in altitude.
Guidance is nominal, 200 seconds remaining.
Back to the primary mission here, we're coming up to a milestone you'll see used only on Electron, the swap out of our batteries that our second stage Rutherford engine draws its energy from to run its electric pumps. The vehicle has run through the set of batteries we used for stage 2 ignition, so now we need to swap over to a fresh set to keep things going. We call this move the battery hot swap. We should hear that call come from Mission Control shortly, but keep an eye on your screen too, as you might just catch a glimpse of them falling away.
Hot swap successful.
And there goes the call for a successful battery hot swap. Listening out now for confirmation of the deployment of the drogue chute on Stage 1. That'll bring the initial velocity of the booster down to about a third, from around Mach 1.4 to just Mach 0.5.
AFTS is safed.
Recovery vessel confirms drogue.
And we're just confirming that we have just heard from Mission Control over the nets that we have had a nominal drogue chute deploy. This will demonstrate a significant reduction in velocity for our first stage ahead of the deployment of our much larger main parachute, which will take Electron to a soft splashdown in the Pacific Ocean, where our recovery vessel is awaiting to scoop it out of the water and begin that desalting process.
Stage 2 propulsion holding nominal.
Guidance is in terminal, 20 seconds remaining.
Stage 1 main chute deployed and confirmed on video.
And that's confirmation from the team in Mission Control. The Stage 1 main chute has deployed and the booster is on about a 7-minute journey back down to the water. Meanwhile, in space, where that Stage 2 is ferrying our customer spacecraft to their orbital destination, we're moving at a very brisk 28,000 kilometers an hour. And it looks like we've just had Stage 2 shutdown.
Stage 3 separation confirmed. Nominal transfer orbit achieved.
And with that nozzle cooling and confirmation from Mission Control, we've had a successful second engine cutoff and kickstage separation. Today's satellites are headed to a sun-synchronous orbit, but as we mentioned before, our kickstage is on an elliptical first pass. It needs propulsion to course correct and orient it in the right trajectory for payload deployment, and that's where the Curie engine comes in. The first payload deployment sequence is scheduled for around 30 minutes from now, with a second scheduled for about an hour after that at T plus 1 hour and 40 minutes.
We won't have live video of payload deployment for this mission, but we will continue to follow along and listen out for those final few calls from Mission Control, as well as animated views of the end of the mission to visualize what happens in space when they do deploy. Before we take a break, we might want to have a bit of a check-in on the recovery again. I'm not sure if we've got that camera available, but I'm told that the recovery crew are patiently waiting for booster splashdown in the ocean. And once that booster is in the water, the crew will use their capture apparatus to grab the stage from the ocean and bring it aboard. If we get that recovery vessel camera back, we'll bring it to you as long as we have. But for now, we'll take a little bit of a break and we'll come back to you in a few minutes with confirmation of booster splashdown. We'll be back with you shortly.
And if you're just joining us, welcome here to the launch pad. We are now at T plus 10 minutes, 40 seconds into flight. Now about 6 minutes or so away from the expected splashdown of that first stage. We had confirmation of a good first drogue shoot and the main shoots as well. If it was your first time here, though, welcome. Make sure you engage that subscribe button so you never miss another live launch coverage, space news update, or exclusive one-on-one interview. Last week, I sat down with Peggy Whitson, the commander of Axiom Space's AX-2 mission and the most flown astronaut that's flown the most days from the United States. Definitely take the time, check out that interview. She has an amazing insight and explanation on her perspective of our beautiful spaceship Earth, so definitely check that out here on the launch pad. We're going to take time to answer your guys' comments or questions, so you can send those in the chat now by tagging us at the launch pad. We'll work on answering those live. It is launch day, so you can head on over to our shop, use promo code LAUNCHDAY, get 10% off of everything in the shop. Global shipping available and sizes from small all the way up to 5 and 6XL, so there is something for everyone because space is better together. As you send in some more questions, I know we missed a few as we were going into the final bit of the count, so we're going to scroll back and try to answer a few of those as they came in. I know there was multiple around the idea of the helicopter, and that's why they aren't using that. Seems more complex. In theory, it would have been a simpler idea if they could just hook the chute, but ultimately more cost effective and more risky, and that's why they're not doing that there. Someone asked thoughts on using parachutes rather than propulsive landing like we see with Falcon 9. Chutes are something we've used for 50 years. We know they work. We understand them. So they are a lot, I don't want to say easier to adapt to, but are something that we understand far better. And because of that, it's easier for some of these companies to be able to use them. It also means that Electron doesn't have to be nearly as precise as Falcon 9. Falcon 9 has to land in a very small area. On land, it's got a little bit bigger of a landing pad, but those drone ships, you can only fit maybe 3 Falcon 9s or so wide, having seen them in person. There's not a lot of room, so you have to be perfect on those recoveries. Electron just deploys the chute and splashes down wherever it wants for it, and then the ship comes and gets it. So it's a lot easier in that sense for recovery. But some great questions coming in there. Appreciate it. J-Roar, is there a model kit for this rocket, or is this rocket the model kit? It's a little bit bigger than a model kit, but we are working on TLP models, so make sure you stay tuned for those. We're going to bring them out when they're ready, but Electron and Neutron are definitely ones that we are looking at having as part of our collection. We're going to have a number of collections, both of new rockets and of historical, so stay tuned for that. A little bit separate from that, though, if you are interested in joining the TLP crew, or a crew located around the world, you can do so over on our website. You can fill out an application there. We are looking for a few new moderators to join our team, a couple more writers/journalists to join our TLP news team, and of course we're always looking for more people to join the shop team, social media, and different things like that. We are mostly a volunteer team, but we have a global team working together for that mission of informing and inspiring the explorers of tomorrow, and we'd love to welcome some more of you onto that team. So make sure you take a moment, check out that application, consider your time, and if you want to be part of the TLP crew. If you are a photographer or videographer, we're also looking at adding some more of our rocket chasers. Always could have more on the Space Coast, but we are looking for some rocket chasers in other locations. So looking for Starbase, for Vandenberg area in California, as well as looking for places like New Zealand and India and China, as we continue to expand our coverage, not only covering American launches, but covering launches around the world. Paul wants a full-scale model kit of Electron. We'll work on it, but I think it's going to be rather expensive to ship. Just so you know, might be expensive shipping. We try to keep our shipping pretty low. On your screen now is a live look at the live tracking of the Electron rocket as it continues on its journey. We're waiting for confirmation of splashdown. We should have that about 2 minutes from now. Really, in any time at this point, the Electron could splash down in the Pacific Ocean, having completed its mission. This was Electron's 39th flight for RocketLab, their 39th rocket. So we'll hopefully have a good recovery. Paul's asking, is TOP on Threads yet? We're not. We haven't rolled over into Threads just yet. We're waiting to see if it lasts. There's been a few other sites that have come and gone quite quickly, and for us to move all of our social media stuff onto new sites, it does take a fair amount of time. So we want to see how Threads gets going and see if it sticks around. But we are on Twitter, we're on Facebook, we're on Reddit, and then if our biggest one, the easiest one to use, is just join the TLP Discord. It's free to join. That's where our community hangs out in between launches. We talk about space news, and for our members, we're working on something that's going to be really interesting for you guys that'll be on Discord. We are going to be setting up studio cameras, which means you will be able to go behind the scenes at the launch pad while we live stream launches. You will get to see everything that I see with a camera behind me. We're going to be setting this up in both of our studios. That's something that you'll be able to see. So that's going to be a members thing. It will not be 24/7, most likely. That just probably not a great idea. There's some stuff that we got to keep a little secret on how we do it, but during launch streams and during other times when we think we can, we will go live on that behind the scenes camera, and you'll be able to see into our TLP Canada studio, into our TLP Space Coast studio, and maybe even now and again into our network control center in Glasgow as well. So take them, if you're a member, keep an eye out for that. We're going to be working on testing that over the coming weeks, so make sure you stay tuned for that. We do have the 24/7 live tracker up for Chandrayaan 3, and we are working on some other 24/7 feeds that are not necessarily live cameras, so make sure you stay tuned for those as well. Again, if you're just joining us, welcome. We should have had splashdown of the first stage of Electron. We're listening in for that update on whether they had a successful retrieval of that booster, but we have not seen that come through social media or on stream just yet, so bear with us as we await for that.
Those of you just joining us there, we have had Stage 1 splashdown in the Pacific Ocean. And you can see it on your screen just there. We're with the crew aboard the recovery vessel who will now be making their way to the splashdown location to collect their booster. As operations continue as normal, we will take a break again. And when we come back, we will share when the payloads are deployed. We'll be back with you at around T+46 minutes.
And there we go. Confirmation of first stage splashdown. You can see that recovery ship flying towards where they are going to recover that first stage of Electron. We're now T-minus 30 minutes, 30 seconds away from the first deployment of NASA's Starling satellites. And it looks like we might get to keep these live views and watch recovery operations, which would be absolutely incredible. So we're going to be staying live, continuing to answer your guys' comments and questions, so you can keep sending those in the chat. Can relate to today's launch or anything other about space, and we're happy to answer those as well. Mr. Moses, another super sticker this time. Wait for it. Thank you so much for sending in that super sticker. It really does help us continue to expand our team, expand our equipment, to bring you guys the best possible coverage, and hopefully have some people actually on location to carry Electron launches in the near future. My hope is to be on site sometime next year. I want to see an Electron fly from New Zealand, and I got to check off that continent. So it's a win-win. Veronica's asking, do you post launches like this one when the launch center shares their camera streams, like whoever they have? I think that's pretty cool. I love watching them. Felt John Glenn's shuttle launch. I'm not sure if I fully understand, but yeah, we try to cover all launches globally. If we can do so live, we do. On the extremely rare occasion that none of our team are available to bring you a live stream of a launch, then we do bring a recap of that launch. We're also going to be working on bringing launch recovery and landing shorts on our TLP Clips channel, so make sure you stay tuned for those as well. Phantom's asking why didn't they go with chutes rather than landing legs. Went into it a little bit earlier, so want to scroll back a little bit, but biggest thing, chutes are reliable. We know how they work, but also they are far less precise needing to be. So Electron can parachute down, splash down, and then as you see in the bottom right corner of your screen, the recovery ship can full throttle and approach it while it is safe. It's not something that they actually have to precisely land Electron on a site, and it's cheaper than doing the helicopter option and safer. So that is why they have decided to go with the chute and water splashdown. Stealth Mode, thank you so much for that super sticker. Appreciate it. It looks like a dancing pair blowing kisses, or blowing hearts. I appreciate it. Thanks for your support there. Catherine checked in on the RocketLab stock. It sounds like it has had a good day on the stock. That's good to hear. Always good to see another rocket stock doing well, rather than some of the others that we have seen. Catching up on the chat. If you guys have any more questions, you can send those in the chat while we continue to watch on the bottom right corner of your screen the recovery of this Electron. We're going to take a quick commentary break as we are now about 27 minutes, 37 seconds away from the first payload deployments. So stay with us right here on the launch pad as we continue to monitor payload deployment and recovery operations of Rocket Lab's 39th Electron mission, Baby Come Back. Stay with us. And if you're just joining us, welcome here to the launch pad. There it is. Electron is now in view of the recovery ship, and recovery operations are underway. That Electron rocket launched 37 minutes, 25 seconds ago, and the recovery ship has located and approached it and are now preparing to retrieve it from the Pacific Ocean. If you haven't yet, take a moment, share out the stream, let people know we've got live recovery operations on screen here as we continue to a payload deployment. The first of 3 sets of payloads will be getting deployed here in just under 11 minutes time. Now, we do not have live audio from the recovery ship, unfortunately, but we will keep it full screen here and monitor these recovery operations as long as we have the live feed from the ship through RocketLab. 38 minutes ago, it launched from the Mahia Peninsula in New Zealand and is now in sights of the recovery ship. The first time we have really ever seen a recovery operation like this live. We see SpaceX with the boosters landing, but super exciting to actually get to watch, hopefully, a water recovery live on the air. If you guys have questions, you can keep sending those in the chat by tagging us at the launch pad. We'll work on answering those live while we continue to monitor these recovery operations. Stay with us right here on the launch pad. And it does look like that feed has gone down from the recovery ship. Hopefully we will get that live view back, but it may also be for security of the recovery ship and this, not secrecy, but the privacy of how RocketLab recovers their Electron rockets. But hopefully we'll get that live view back. Now, just coming up to 41 minutes since the launch of Electron from New Zealand, the Kickstage now coming up over the part of western part of Africa, beginning its northern hemisphere transition. 7 minutes, 30 seconds and counting till the first of the 3 sets of deployments. The first set is of NASA's Starling satellites. That's in 7 minutes, 20 seconds from now. We'll be keeping an eye on that, and RocketLab will have a live animation of how that deployment should go. So stay with us right here on the launch pad.
RocketLab's 39th Electron launch. We are now T plus 44 minutes into the Baby Come Back mission, with the first of 2 payload deployment sequences coming up shortly. Before that, though, let's recap on the mission so far.
Baby Come Back launched at the top of the window, lifting off the pad at Rocket Lab Launch Complex 1 at 1:27 New Zealand time or 01:27 UTC. Electron had a clean pass through max Q, main engine cutoff, first and second stage separation, and then second engine cutoff, followed by final stage separation from the Kickstage carrying today's satellites. While that happened, the first stage began its descent back down to Earth under a parachute and has since successfully splashed down in the ocean. And while we were on our break, you would have seen that recovery vessel approaching the splashdown booster.
The Kickstage is now coming up on payload deployment shortly. First, the Curie engine will ignite to position the Kickstage in a circular orbit ahead of its mark. Then the NASA Starlink satellites will deploy one at a time, followed by the Spire satellites. The Curie engine will then ignite again, making an inclination shift ahead of the deployment of LEO 3 for SFL and Telesat. That second deployment sequence will be taking place in about an hour or so, and we'll update you as it happens. Meanwhile, we're listening out to Mission Control for confirmation of that first of 4 Curie engine burns. Curie engine ignition. This burn will last for around 120 seconds before shutting off, shortly followed by the start of our payload deployment sequence.
T-minus 60 seconds till NASA Starlink deployment. .30 seconds to deployment.
Perigee is 574 kilometers and inclination is 99.45 degrees.
Fantastic news there from Mission Control. Curie has shut down at the expected altitude. We have about 25 to 30 seconds now until that first deployment for NASA.
Payload deployment confirmed for NASA Starlink 1.
And the deployment sequence has begun with the first of 4 Starlink satellites for NASA out of their deployer.
Payload deployment confirmed for NASA Starlink 2.
That's number 2 out of their deployer. We have 2 more 6U CubeSats for NASA coming up, followed by the 2 3U CubeSats for Spire at 575 circular.
Payload deployment confirmed for NASA Starlink 3.
Number 3 there for NASA, the 3rd Starlink CubeSat out of its Maxwell deployer. 1 more to go for NASA, and then the 2 3U CubeSats for Spire.
Payload deployment confirmed for NASA Starlink 4.
And that's all 4 NASA Starlink CubeSats deployed. Now it's time to deploy the 2 Spire satellites, which should be in quick succession here any moment now.
Payload deployment confirmed for Spire 1.
Fantastic news there from Mission Control. Payload deployment confirmed for Spire 1. We have the last 3U CubeSat for Spire coming up shortly, and then we'll have another coast phase briefly, followed by the SFL deployment at about T plus 1 hour 45.
And payload deployment confirmed for Spire 2.
Excellent news again from Mission Control. Spire's 2 3U GN SSRO CubeSats have been successfully deployed from Electron's Kickstage, which of course marks the end of our first of 2 deployment sequences.
The payload for SFL today is out a little further than the other satellites on the mission, so the Curie engine will reignite 2 more times to get to the proper orbit. This will be a bit of a long one. We will be back at about T plus 1 hour and 44 minutes to give the final updates.
And there you have it. The first set of deployments are complete. NASA's 4 Starlink satellites have been deployed, as well as the 2 Spire 1 and Spire 2 satellites have also been deployed. The first 6 payloads now complete. Now we count and wait for that 7th one. That 7th deployment expected to occur 52 minutes, 46 seconds from now. And if you watch the clocks there, we are about exactly halfway through today's mission. Now we still have some more milestones to get to before we actually get to that point for the final deployment. We do have to have that Kickstage burn 2 more times. The Kickstage will ignite T plus 54 minutes 19 seconds into 54 minutes 49 seconds into flight. It'll burn for about 30 seconds before it shuts off. Then at T plus 1 hour 44 minutes it will burn again, and we will have another about 25 second burn before it has another shut off. So we do have one more burn coming up here right away, followed by another one in about 40 minutes time. Then we will have that final Leo 3 satellite deploy. If you guys have questions, you can keep sending those in the chat by tagging us at the launch pad, and we'll work on answering those live for the rest of today's coast phase. If you haven't yet, take a moment, head on over to the shop, check it out, use promo code LAUNCHDAY, gets you 10% off of everything on there. And while we have time, maybe consider heading on over and checking out this week's latest Space TLP News Weekly, or our new interview with Peggy Whitson, the commander of AX2, both some shorter videos, and you'll have time to watch them prior to payload deployment. But you can keep sending those in here. BMXer is asking, how many launches are planned for this year? Are you meaning for RocketLab or for everyone? SpaceX was targeting 104. That right now is on track to be in the high 80s or low 90s at this point. RocketLab has had 7 so far, so we could see them get to 10, maybe 12 this year, maybe more, depending how quickly they turn these vehicles around. Obviously, Russia's got a chunk, China's got a chunk, so I expect us to be in that. I think we'll hit at least 200 this year. We should be able to hit that, maybe 250, somewhere in there. But we'll have to wait and see how the year progresses. Taking a look at how things are progressing this year so far, We're still making some adjustments here. We've had 107 launches this year. As I said, this is Rocket Lab's 7th launch and 7th Electron launch. This is the only rocket currently in operation for them, and this is their 4th launch from Launch Complex 1B this year. Now, for all time, we are at 6,650 launches in human history. This was Rocket Lab's 39th launch, the 10th launch from Launch Complex 1B, which was their second pad. So we'll keep a close eye on how things continue to progress, for the rest of this year. And BMXer, how many will have customer payload? So it all depends on how you classify a customer payload. So some of them are partner payloads, where rocket companies are launching their own, or they're partnering with colleges, universities, or other companies. And then there's other situations where a company pays SpaceX or Rocket Lab, like today, to launch a satellite. So there's kind of some different definitions of how you want to do a customer. But right now, a majority of launches for Rocket Lab, or for all of Rocket Labs, are for customers, whether it's government, private, military, or commercial, or for other agencies as well. Like today we had NASA on board. So yeah, most launches nowadays, I would say, are for customers, as most rockets in operation right now are for they're private companies launching. So SpaceX, Rocket Lab, things like that. We don't have a huge number of Soyuz launching currently, and we don't have many other vehicles that are actually owned by government. So a lot of the time it is missions for contracts for governments by private companies. So good question. Thanks for sending that in. The Kickstage coming up on its way over to Greenland. Looking at its flight path, going to pass over the northern part of Canada and the Arctic there before heading back down towards New Zealand to complete its first orbit. Fedora is asking, did they try the recovery attempt, or are they waiting the long game? They just did. So Electron came back. It broke through the wall, as they call it, for re-entry. Had a good drogue shoot, had a good main shoot, splashed down, and we did watch as the recovery ship went full speed flying towards that Electron rocket. We saw the first stage floating in the water, and then they cut the recovery feeds. We are awaiting confirmation of a good recovery, but Electron looked good. It was floating. It looked like it was in one piece, so we are awaiting confirmation of how that went. But they are beginning these recoveries, and this is hopefully the first one. They had modifications done for recovery, so they're going to look at it, see if they can clean it up and refurbish it and get it back out to the pad for another flight. This is hopefully going to be the first Rocket Lab booster that we actually have to track its flights as it goes for reusability. So great to see there. We're continuing to count down to that final payload deployment, T-minus 47 minutes, 35 seconds, and counting. You can continue sending in those questions, and we'll work on answering those throughout today's stream. We're going to take another quick commentary break. We'll be back with you as we have more updates, hopefully on recovery, and as well as we get closer to payload deployment. Stay with us. And if you're just joining us, welcome here to the launch pad. The live views from the recovery ship are back, and they are preparing to recover that Electron rocket from the Pacific Ocean after it launched 1 hour, 13 minutes, 15 seconds ago. You can see the recovery ship beginning to slowly approach the Electron's first stage. It has that kind of hand mount on the side where ultimately it will be picked up too, but they are going through these recovery operations. Next payload deployment scheduled 31 minutes, 40 seconds from now, but we're glad to have those live views back from the recovery ship as they continue to attempt to recover, hopefully, the first Electron rocket that will get to refly. You guys can continue sending in questions in the chat. We'll work on answering those in the chat as we continue through. We are listening into Mission Control if there are any updates, but at this time they have not been saying anything. We are coming up to that final Curie stage burn. That burn's going to occur about 30 minutes from now, just ahead of that final payload deployment. So stay with us right here on the launch pad as Electron recovery operations continue. And the views from the recovery ship are back, and there you can see Electron successfully recovered from the Pacific Ocean. T plus 1 hour, 41 minutes, 34 seconds since it launched from Launch Complex 1B at the RocketLab Launch Complex of the Mahia Peninsula in New Zealand. We're now just 3 minutes, 30 seconds away from the final payload deployment of the Electron's 39th mission, Baby Come Back. We're waiting for more updates from RocketLab Mission Control as we approach this final deployment, but the Electron has been recovered, and we have these wonderful live views of those Rutherford engines on the base of the first stage of the Electron rocket. Stay with us as we await final deployment.
And 0.45 degrees.
And once again, welcome back to the launch of Rocket Lab's Baby Come Back mission, rideshare mission, We are in the second of our 2 deployment phases after a successful ride to orbit. As you can see on the right of your screen there, our recovery vessel has successfully captured the Stage 1 booster after its descent back down to Earth under a parachute. 90 minutes or so into the mission, we were able to pull it up. The team are quickly working on those desalting procedures. The Curie engine has just reignited and shut down for the 3rd time, and it gets us into the perfect position for deploying the SFL LEO 3 satellite deployment, coming up very shortly, so let's take a look.
And there it goes. Mission Control have confirmed the Leo 3 satellite. The final payload on this mission has successfully deployed to its new home in orbit.
And as you just heard there, Electron's 39th mission, Baby Come Back, is now complete. Electron has been recovered. All 7 sets of payloads have been deployed. And that is going to wrap us up for our live launch coverage of RocketLab Electron's Baby Come Back mission. If it was your first time here, though, welcome. Thanks so much for joining us here at the Launchpad. It's our mission to inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow because we believe that space is better together. Make sure you've engaged that subscribe button so you never miss another live launch coverage, space news update, our TLP News Weekly, or an exclusive one-on-one interview. And don't forget, our 24/7 Chandrayaan-3 live tracker is now up and running. But that's going to do it from our TLP Canada studio. My name's Zach. This was our live launch coverage of Rocket Lab Electron Baby Come Back, and we'll see you next time because space is better together. Good night.